Hello, Maverick Traders. Welcome to our currency recap for the 13th of June. Joe with you here on a Thursday. Let's jump into the market action. I'm going to break down the meaningful news of the day. Let's take a look at the charts and what they have to give us. And as always, let's share some trades with the community.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
As we get into our market analysis, you'll see that we had basically the exact opposite effect on everything we talked about yesterday. I refer to this as, let's jump into it here, a push-pull reaction. So hesitation after yesterday's surge in the U.S. equity markets. This is very common when it comes to charts reaching higher levels or exceeding the previous level, high base breakouts, ascending triangles. Once you get up to that point, you kind of look around at each other and say, okay, what do we do now? And I refer to this as a push-pull reaction. What ends up happening is you'll jump up and you'll have a pretty big move to the upside, and then the next day you get a subsequent move to the downside. But you take the two together, and that's kind of where you really have to gauge which one won. When you get a standstill between the two, what ends up happening is it's almost a throwaway event, meaning let's just stick with the overall trend or the overall attitude that we had on whatever it was we were looking at previously and just kind of just let it mop itself up. Now, what happens with this push-pull, it does confuse a whole lot of bulls. It does confuse a whole lot of bears, but only on their opinions. If you watch this charting-wise, there's no big deal at all. It's actually kind of irrelevant. I'll show it here in a minute when it comes to some of the candlesticks. So Aussie trades flat on a stronger than expected labor market. That came out a little bit higher than expected. It shows that, hey, there's strength there, so chances of quantitative easing in there is not going to happen. It didn't have too big of a negative effect on something that was already strong, but more of just kind of a non-event overall. So let's just jump straight into these currencies, and you can see if you were to take a look at what we talked about on yesterday's currency roundup, every single one of these, I'd say except for the US dollar, would be flip-flopped. The pound was a little lower, it ended flat. Euro was higher, it ended a little lower, so on and so forth. The only thing that really stood in there and that gained a little bit more ground was the US dollar. But between yesterday and today, not a lot of action, not a lot of change in the currencies as they stand. Same with this. The world index, VT, crypto, gold, oil were all right side up with positive gains. The only one that actually continued a little higher was the SPX, but just slightly at 0.23%. So push-pull. Don't look too deep into any of these changes. You can see crypto too, by the way, down 1.87%. As a cumulative, you'll find that a lot of those were a little bit deeper, but the charts themselves really aren't giving us much to go off. Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin itself, the two biggest losers, obviously. Ethereum, Litecoin kind of hung in there a little bit, posting a gain of 0.89%, but the charts aren't really going to give us any more than we saw yesterday. However, it doesn't mean that we can't go out and look for some trades or get an idea of what we should be looking at because we do have a Bank of Japan number coming out here anytime in the next little bit. So let's take a look at our market outlook. Nothing has changed. 2050 moving average to 2050 slope. Let me get a little deeper into this chart here, folks. It's probably the best example that I've had in a while. I do a lot of this on the equity side, and it's a pattern. I'm not sure if it's one that Bolkowski will have or something that's in Nissen's candlestick charting handbooks, but I refer to it as a push-pull. And take a look at this shooting star candlestick pattern that we had yesterday, and Rob even talked about it as well. He wouldn't be surprised if we had subsequent candles that might have pulled back to a support level, but once again, still staying above this symmetrical triangle, or excuse me, I should say this consolidation pattern, and it is still a +3. Today's candlestick, yesterday's candlestick, the two combined do not change the fact we're still a +3. However, it can make you feel that way because what do we have right after a shooting star? Its inverse, which is a hammer. So yesterday we opened, shot up really high, and closed down towards the end of the day. Today we gapped up, we were falling apart, and we shot right back up to close to the upper side of the day. kind of wipes itself out. Overall, what I want you to focus on will be the combination of the two. So if you take these two candlesticks as one candlestick, guess what, folks? Yep, that's an ascending triangle or a high base breakout, whatever you guys want to call it. I'll try to get that line a little straighter, but it is definitely higher. It is continuing, and it is nothing but bullish. So what do we got on tap? Well, there's a couple things. The first thing we'll talk about is the unemployment here. Here's the Aussie unemployment change. You can see it was expecting at 30.5K, and it was 39.7. So a lot of employment. A lot of the stuff that I saw was for full-time employment as well. So it did retrace a little bit, but it didn't fall apart. This isn't a bad thing for Australia, but their currency, it's not going to catch any sort of a break or anytime soon like that. So no real change there. It's still on the, I believe it's a +1 in our currency charts. So it's still showing some strength there. What do we got coming up? It's definitely going to be this. It says it's tentative, so it's on its way. Bank of Japan is not supposed to do much. Maybe reduce some of their quantitative easing. Maybe reduce some of their buybacks of bonds. That's about it. Other than that, they're expected to keep rates the same. We'll see if that's outside of expectations, because if we can get some sort of an impact on one of these safety currencies, then we might get a little bit more diversification, or I should say bifurcation of currencies that we can compare, right? If Japan gets weaker, it'd be nicer because we get a weaker currency and we can actually go back to the New Zealand dollar, maybe the Australian dollar, and if the Great British Pound can get stronger, then we'll have something to go trade. If not, if these start to come inward and all of our currencies are +1, 0, +2, or excuse me, +1, 0, -1, it's going to be very difficult to get any sort of independent moves. Let's take a look at some of these, right now and see if there's any sort of changes that could be measurable. So here's the SPX, folks. Yep, you can see the push and pull right there. I'm just going to start. Let's just go top to bottom here. Let's go to the yen since it's on tap for its next, the next event is going to be based on the yen. So this is its daily chart. It looks like it's still continuing down. Let me shrink it up. I like to take a look at a longer look. And it has just been rolling over. It's been falling, but it hasn't broken anything yet. You can see that if we get something outside of what's expected, hopefully something that weakens the currency, we might get a nice breakdown, and this can get weaker, and we can start pairing it with some of those stronger currencies. However, over the last few hours, let me go to the 4-hour chart here. It's just, it's kind of where it is. It really hasn't broken any sort of substantial ground, or I should say any sort of level that I'd be willing to just go ahead and get super bearish on. In fact, it had a little bit of a relief. I imagine that's because it's going into this announcement. So we definitely want to keep it on our radar. But let's see what happens with what the BOJ does, because that's definitely going to have the biggest impact on it. Let's move over to the US dollar inside day. That's what we refer to this. Getting tight, didn't get any stronger, didn't get any weaker. It kind of is what it is. So we're just going to keep it right where it's at. Swiss franc had a pretty anemic bounce there, and it looks like it's just going to hold in. I would like to see something that would affect this currency to get either weaker or kind of come out and just at least get stronger. And there's nothing out there. There's nothing to really drive this in either direction. We're not seeing anything that's advantageous in this. Let's jump to the euro. The euro gave up a little bit today. Did show a little bit of weakness. I do like how it has fallen off of those moving averages. It looks good here on the daily. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. Might be showing us something a little bit different, but boy, I do like this rollover. It did break a support level. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and downgrade the euro maybe slightly. I don't know. I just like the way that broke. Let's take another look on the daily chart here. Yeah, I definitely got to maybe just slide that a little bit down the scale. Let's see if that's something we can use moving forward. Pound just loves to stay up there. The pound has been super strong, and it's been super complacent ever since it's experienced its adjustments. Lots of legs, lots of shadows. I'll echo what Rob said yesterday. Not a lot of opportunity to kind of jump on board, even though I'd love to pair this against something weaker. It just doesn't have any follow through here. Canadian dollar, a good one to pair to the weak side, right? It's not our flight to safety like the yen. And the US dollar, it's something right in the mid area, and it is showing a kind of a continuation of that same pattern. If I jump into the 4-hour chart, it's given us a little bit more of a rise. So this is kind of that bear rally, still below those averages. We just have to be patient. This might take a little bit into the majority of tomorrow to confirm. where you could see on that daily chart, it just seems like it's ready to break through some of those shadows. So we'll leave it where it is. It's nice and comfortable there. Here's the Aussie. I was hoping for something a little bit more reactionary, and we absolutely didn't get it. Let me take a look at it, the 4-hour chart. So it had its little bit of a spike up in the expectations of this announcement. It came out, nothing really got at worse or better. And it's just kind of meandering around. So we'll just kind of leave it where it's at. And the New Zealand dollar actually was looking like it wants to break out. It looked like it tried yesterday, and then it tried the previous day. Let's take a look at it on the 4-hour chart. Just not a lot of conviction once it's done. It's more of a sideways reaction, or I should say a sideways consolidation. But this currency is staying in line where it's at. So overall, folks, the only thing that I actually saw a little bit of differences would be the euro overall. Other than that, things are kind of sitting right where they're at when it comes to our majors. Let's take a look at Bitcoin here. A little bit of a bounce off the bottom. You could see, well, that's of recent. Let me see if I can't get that on the daily here. There we go. A little bit more specific. So great, decent day yesterday, bad day today. Push, pull, right? Same idea. Hasn't really broken any sort of support level, really given us anything to go off. Let's take a look at Bitcoin Cash, and this one does look like it's getting a little weaker. I do kind of like this. I like to see that we had our push, and here's our pull. This pull's a little deeper than the previous push, and I do like that descending triangle. I might want to move this a little bit more bearish. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I'm going to keep an eye on this. Ethereum just pulling back in the middle of nowhere. You've got the resistance area here. You got a support. It's at a moving average. They have crossed. This would be right in the middle point of a previous high from a previous low. I'm not doing much with that. Litecoin looks like it wants to slide a little lower, but it does have a little bit of a bounce going on here. So you might just kind of want to put that on the side. So I'm really not going to change anything. I think the one thing that I will change is I'm actually just going to go ahead and just slide that euro over. It's just showing a little bit more weakness, but unfortunately, folks, it doesn't do much for us. It takes it from a 0 to a -1. Where we want to play our outliers, -2, -3, +2, +3. Aussie-ish could show some strength. We'll see if that's going to continue forward. It did slide a little bit, but the only thing we're left, folks, is that New Zealand pairing and pretty much Bitcoin Cash. Now, Bitcoin Cash is one that I would really like to maybe move. I was really debating kind of sliding it down to that -2 just as a chart itself, but Bitcoin Cash itself might be something to trade. You got to be very patient with this, and that will be one of the couple trades that we'll be looking at today. So let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at the possible trades. I'm going to continue with the New Zealand CAD, but also let's take one last look at that chart on the yen as well, because hey, there might be opportunity there. So first off, let's just go straight back to that Bitcoin Cash. Now on the 4-hour chart, you can see this thing is already kind of bleeding below. We do have this nice pulse, this nice move down. It's kind of confirmed already if you guys want to start to target it, or if you want to wait for a little bit more confirmation. This daily chart, somewhere around that 423, 423.50, maybe 420.50. I mean, there's a lot of shadows here, but when these do slide, they slide pretty aggressively. So, I mean, it's a big trade. It's something to do by itself, but definitely something that's pretty weak. Obviously, the next one would be the New Zealand dollar CAD. And what's interesting about this, just that strength against it, it looks like it had that nice move Rob was talking about. Let me see if I can't get this on the 4-hour chart. For some of you shorter time frame guys, you just have to be a little bit more patient. The 0.85 maybe level, somewhere around here-ish would be good. You could wait for that last pivot point. If you want to get a little bit more hands off, just wait for that thing to start to show some strength and move higher. But I do like that as an entry. And since we do have the BOJ, let's take a look at that New Zealand yen pairing, and it looks like it's already pinned there. This is going to be kind of a difficult one. You'll probably get some head fakes based on any number that comes out of any country is going to have a little bit of a push-pull. But I really do like it as well. It's a very comfortable looking, nice high base. Looks like it's right up against that area. Just wait for stuff to confirm before you actually completely just go out and chase it. It is actually cool to be late to this party than it would be to be early. You'll find that it doesn't hurt as bad in your portfolio over the long term. But both New Zealand CAD and the New Zealand yen, they both look really, really good, as they did yesterday. So that's about all I got, folks. We are kind of stuck in this little timeline. of, things being in the middle and just kind of waiting to see what happens. I know we like to draw this box, but to understand the only thing I did here was possibly I just moved that euro down to a -1, and I think Bitcoin has the ability to maybe slide down to -2. I just want to see a little bit more confirmation, Bitcoin Cash, but a couple of opportunities there. Bullish markets remain. Stay with trends and look for risk on opportunities. I'm fine with that. I totally am. If everything's going to try to get into that median area of -1 to +1, there's no reason to make anything up. You've got to wait for those outliers to get to the outside. And if risk on is going to continue, right, we got this +3 outlook, then yeah, we could see the Aussie maybe slide back up to a +2. I'd like to see maybe the US dollar might actually slide down to a -2, and keep an eye on that CAD, and we'll see what happens after the BOJ rate policy, which is on its way. Relative strength and weakness, as always, in proper position sizing. Folks, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.